talked a little bit with Brian Arata about layering some of our sounds together. I wanted to jump in real quick, show you a couple things that I think are helpful. And I'm also going to sort of write some music here real quick just to show you it doesn't have to be complicated. So as we know, I've got these drone sounds folded into a track stack. I've got them mixed a little bit. So this intro section's starting to come together. I'm going to turn on the metronome and I'm going to use the QWERTY keyboard, that is to say my typing keyboard. I'm going to use that to play a little background track in here. Something that I'm just going to start with the piano, and then I'm going to start to add other instruments to that without really having to know a lot about music. So I've played around on the keys, and those are the keys on my piano, but I'm going to play them on the actual typing keyboard. All right, so I'm going to make something a little bit dark like that. So hold on to your horses. Let's see if I can do this right. And a lot of music is repeating phrases with a little bit of variation. And back to a phrase I already played. All right, that's nonsense. Am I right? Okay. So we got a little something coming together. I'm going to double click on that. Now, when you play these things in Logic using the typing keyboard, well, if you look at all those notes, they're all the exact same color, which means they're all the exact same velocity. If I hover my mouse over those notes, I see they're all the exact same velocity. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select them. I'm going to go to Functions, MIDI Transform, Humanize. So what Humanize does is it takes a performance like that and it allows us to make some modifications. If I look at this velocity column here, underneath that is a random plus or minus 10. So that's going to give me a little bit of volume differences, plus or minus 10 from note to note. If I bump that up, the difference will be greater. Obviously, if I lower it, the difference in note velocity will be less. So I'm going to go, I've already selected the notes, so I'm just going to go Operate Only. Then I'm going to close out of that. And now I've got some multicolored notes. So that's going to give me a little bit more of a characteristic performance. As I look at these notes, I see that I have half notes and whole notes. That's my musical knowledge coming through. 1, 2, 3, 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, those are lined up to half notes. So I'm going to go Command A, and then I'm going to click the Q button, which will align all of those notes to half notes. So I click Q, and a few of them slid and adjusted themselves. Now I've got a basis of some music that I'm going to layer up a little bit. So I'm going to hit P to close that piano roll editor. Then I'm going to hit Command D, let's say 2 times. I'm going to end up going back to these 2 instruments and picking a different type of instrument, but I like to start with piano because that's something that my ear is accustomed to hearing. I'm going to click and drag this region, and as I pull it down to this other track, I'm going to hold down Option, which would normally make a copy, you can see on my little heads up display type thing, but I'm going to hold Option and Shift, and that makes what's called an alias, meaning it's going to look back to this music and repeat that music in this other track. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Option, click and hold Option, click and hold Shift, and let go. Now I'm going to pick a couple different instruments, and then I'm going to jump back into this and show you how we mix it together. I've selected a string ensemble from the library for that track, and I've selected a brass ensemble from the library for that track. Both of these were in the orchestral folder. brass ensemble. I'm actually going to go back to this instrument and I'm going to make it a woodwind ensemble. Let's go with flute section. As I play these back by themselves, they don't sound all that exciting. Command Enter will start the playback from your selection. I'm going to turn down the brass volume. I'm actually going to pick a different sample here. And I'm going to go into the inspector and I'm going to change the transposition. I'm going to make the trombones play lower, and you hear the trombones start to fill that lower sound. Okay, I'm going to do the opposite on the flutes. I'm going to go to the transpose control on the inspector of the flute track. I can't click and talk very well at the same time, and I'm going to raise that up an octave. Okay. Now I'm going to get into the mixer and I'm going to select all three of those tracks and I'm going to send them to an auxiliary bus, as we've done before, bus 3, and in bus 3 I'm going to choose the Space Designer reverb. And people who are paying careful attention already notice that there's a little bit of reverb on each of these tracks in addition to what I'm about to add. I'm going to look around through the presets and I'm going to grab, let's say, Dark Concert Hall. And as I select that preset, I see that that's got a pretty long decay on the reverb, and that's kind of what I want. And then I'm going to option click on any one of those bus sends, and now I've moved that bus send up to kind of the default level, the nominal level, the darkened in U on our mixing board. These are things that we know. I'm going to hit Command Enter. That's going to take me back to the beginning. With all three of these selected, I can pull the volume down on all of them a little bit. I can wash it out with a little bit more reverb. I can turn off that metronome. I apologize. Okay, now I'm going to unsolo those. And then I'm going to make a track stack out of those. Create track stack. I'm going to make a summing stack as we did before. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to label that orchestra. I'm going to actually call it opening because I may get into a little bit different blend a little bit later in this piece. And then I'm going to bring the volume down even more because I just want that to sort of sneak in underneath some of that effects. So that could not be more simple. We've just made a little bit of a layer. I pretended like I really knew nothing about music. I played 5 notes. I have 5 fingers on my right hand, and that's how I was able to play those. So we blended those together. We make an alias from one track to the next. So now I can go back and I can make some modifications to some of that other stuff. Let's stop that before it gets crazy. I can make modifications to that previous region in Logic, and it will update across these others. Now, that's how you start to layer stuff together, and that just scratches the surface. So that gives all of us an idea of how we could do it. Best of luck. Jump in there and make these trailers really pop.